In my media short film product, we decided to blend a couple of different genres, that being sci-fi, comedy, and coming of age. So the film is a coming of age story because the two characters are struggling to deal with reality and they have to rise to the occasion maturity-wise when an alien crash lands on their planet and they have to return it back to where it came from. We used a lot of conventions from coming of age films such as personal growth, relationships, and self-discovery between the characters, and we also used other conventions of sci-fi films such as an alien character that crash landed on Earth, as well as a mostly green color scheme. We also have jokes in the film, which are conventions of a comedic film. And in one of our scenes where they're doing a handshake and before it goes to the playground scene, there is a really abrupt cut when the main character Jermaine is celebrating, which is something that you would see in a comedy movie. As for representation, we decided to use two characters that would fit the stereotype of a nerd and a jock, sort of like a dynamic duo, which would be considered another convention of comedy. Now, one of the main characters, Brad, starts with the film as someone who's really afraid of trying new things like the alien, but throughout the course of the film, he eventually overcomes his fears and insecurities, while Jermaine, on the other hand, is kind of like the opposite. He's a typical teenage boy who has an ego. However, he's also struggling internally. At the beginning of the film, he treats Brad like he's below him and he wants to try to act cool, but by the end of the film, most of his challenges are resolved and he realizes that he doesn't have to act tough just to fit in. Our film also features diverse culture with different ethnicities. For example, Jermaine is Asian, which plays a significant role in his identity and is a major factor as to why he wants to fit in because the story takes place in the United States. Now, the target audience for our film is primarily teenagers and young adults who enjoy coming-of-age movies. Now, to try and engage our demographic, we made characters who were relatable to teenagers in certain ways, as well as giving them emotional depth who are struggling with a sense of identity. We also include jokes in the opening, as I said before, that we think our demographic would appreciate. The main character, Jermaine, is an upcoming 9th grader who's in between middle school and high school, and he has a lot of internal challenges. He kind of feels like he needs to fit in with his peers because of his Asian American identity, and he tries to do so by acting tough and bring others down. By using a character such as Jermaine, I believe the film would be relatable to many teenagers who are actually entering high school or university and trying to fit in with their peers, which creates sort of an emotional connection between the audience and the actual character. In order to create anticipation and excitement for the film, we would post teasers and trailers on apps such as YouTube and TikTok. Platforms like these would allow us to be able to gauge our audience's interest as well as receive some early feedback on the film. Now, our product will be marketed on social media before it's released to create hype around the movie. Not only would this give us free exposure, but it would also give them a chance to share it with their friends and family if they want to go see it potentially. We'd also have it shown as trailers in movie theaters before other movies so that people who actively attend movie theaters would know about the release of our film. Following this, we'd have our film released across different theaters across the world in order to gain media attention. We'd also partner with other companies and brands to help promote our film, as well as hosting Q&A events with the main characters and cast who made the film. After some time in theaters, like a few months, we'd try to have the film be globally available by using streaming apps such as Netflix and Amazon Prime. Netflix in particular is the #1 streaming service used by teenagers in the United States, which would be perfect considering our actual demographic. Besides the film, we try to have merchandise available, including clothing-themed merch and accessories. In the theaters, we try to have our own special themed food combos to engage with our fans more. Other films, such as a Minecraft movie, have been doing this recently, and we thought it would be something that would be really nice to have. At the start of the course, my production skills were not the best. However, I gained proficiency and learned how to effectively produce media throughout the course. I already had an understanding on how to use editing softwares, but it wasn't in the style of a movie. I had to adapt to this new style and learn new ways to engage the audience without over-editing, while still also adding comedic effects to it. My planning skills were also not the best. I didn't really know what I was going to do, and I was going to just go straight into it without a proper script or a storyboard. However, I learned just how important these steps would be to creating a film. Without it, it would be a lot more difficult to manage. Also, although I wasn't the main director, I still learned throughout filming how to manage actors and make sure they were following what was the originally intended idea of the scenes. And I also learned how to use the camera that we were provided, even though I wasn't the main cinematographer. It gave me a better understanding of what makes a shot actually good and how to use and treat the equipment throughout the duration of the project. Now, in the beginning, I thought my understanding of how to use Premiere Pro was going to be enough in itself. However, as I said earlier, my style wasn't something that was really made for movies, and instead it was something that I should only use for social media. I had to learn and adapt by manipulating the audio, the clips, and the scale of the frames for the films to make it more believable and interactive with the audience. Developing this new style using J-Cuts helped me edit and create a great final product that was comedic but also in the traditional movie style. Now, in my opinion, collaborating was the biggest challenge we had on the project. There was some initial discourse on how we wanted the actors to move and act, and also about who was going to get the props, such as the alien costume. We eventually figured it out, but it taught me a valuable lesson about how we needed effective communication. This was also the same for the actors, as I had to communicate with them on how I wanted them to act, specifically in a way that wouldn't bring them down or discourage them, while also telling them to do something that I think would make the scene better. It's very fair to say that without collaboration skills, this project would have fallen apart. During the production of our final product, we used a few different technology pieces to help bring our story to life. Whether it was just a simple editing software, a piece of equipment, or a website, each piece was essential to the creation of our film. While we were planning, we used websites such as Google Drive and Google Docs to collaborate on what we were going to do with the story. For example, Google Drive let us share the script template that we would both work on to create the script and make the blueprint for our film. We also used Google Docs before we made the script to decide on the setting, character names, and all of that stuff. We were given our own camera, which is a Canon DSLR camera, and other equipment for the camera to help us capture different shots. We used the stabilizer that we had provided for certain shots, such as the handshake scene, to make sure it was smooth. The camera also had a microphone on it, although sometimes we just chose to record audio on our phones and transfer it over if the audio from the camera was too quiet. During editing, I used the Premiere Pro software. It let me compile footage together as well as add sound effects and adjust the zoom of every shot to make it as engaging as possible. We also opted to add subtitles to our film to accommodate for the limited audio that was being provided by our camera. I would constantly go and adjust the sound, such as the gain, and add other effects to the audio to make it sound the best as I could. Throughout the duration of the project, I used social media to stay in contact with people working on the film, and we'd discuss deadlines and make sure to keep ourselves on track. And all this helped to make sure that we were on task and had extra time to buff out the minor problems and revise our film.